everybody seems to be experiencing in their lives along with this pandemic.
Attention all football fans. If you can't see your team play, come and dine with us and watch it live at Boardman, Canfield, or Cortland. Or staying at home, we'll deliver right to your door. That's Coca's Pizza. We serve it hot.
Of Let's Talk, and today joining the show we have Third Day Coffee and Havana House of Boardman and Niles. So we've got both locations here. Thanks guys for coming to the show. We've got some great stories to tell, the business world, some of the roasting you guys do. So we've got a lot to cover here today. And again, I want to thank you all for coming out here. So Joe, you're from Third Day Coffee, Luke, Havana House of Niles, and then Garrett, Havana House of Boardman. So guys, does this take an Einstein to figure out the coffee industry? Because there's so many different flavors, there's so many different types and styles of coffees and espressos and things like that. And I think if I, as an average person, would walk into the store my first day, I think I would be overwhelmed.
It's just a matter of time, more so than anything.
A matter of time, okay.
You can jump in, you can get your feet wet, but from there, it's just that progressive learning. You know, what are we going to do with this bean? How are we going to work this out? What origins are we sourcing? Things along those lines.
Okay.
At least that's what we've done.
Okay, and what about you, Joe? You're new. You're brand new at this. You've 2 years under your belt now.
I've been roasting myself for 10 years, but I got into it for personal, and then you start taking your coffee places and people smell it, and then they're like, "Hey, what are you drinking?" And it's not the normal swell that's here. Mm-hmm. So workplaces and stuff. So you start sharing coffee. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, I share a lot of coffee because it's a social thing more than it is a commodity. So with coffee, it's an icebreaker. You can sit down and have a cup of coffee with a friend, and when you start talking about a bean or a certain origin and the notes that's in it, a lot of people, when they drink coffee with cream and sugar. So It muffles down the notes that are in the coffee. And any bean that is freshly roasted is not, as long as it's not on the burnt side, it's very easy to drink black. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of people don't realize that because I've had so many customers and friends say, I can't drink black coffee. Mm-hmm. I'm like, just try it. Mm-hmm. Just try a fresh roast. Just try it and see if you like it. And 9 times out of 10, they start drinking black coffee. I've had a lot of people come to me that have health issues. Mm-hmm. They have to give up dairy. They don't like almond milk. They don't like other stuff like that in the coffee. So they start switching to tea. And tea just doesn't cut it for them because they're so used to coffee. So when they start drinking black coffee that's freshly roasted, it's an eye-opener and a game changer. And then they start exploring. So they start out with something real common, like maybe a Brazilian or something mellow. And then they'll get into like an Ethiopian or like a Sidamu from Ethiopia, which is a little more earthy. And then you can get into Sumatras. And usually by then your palate changes. And then you can start trying maybe a Sumatran, which is usually a heavy-bodied, earthy coffee. And then you start getting into it and then become a coffee nerd like we are.
A coffee nerd.
Yeah.
It's true, basically.
That's a good way to put it. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how your day starts. I mean, you said there's certain times that you guys do your roasting, and when you leave here, you've got like 195 pounds or something of roasting to do. Yeah. So fill us in a little bit of, this is all new to us. This is a whole new territory. So it's interesting. It truly is.
How's your day started?
At the shop or in general? Depending on the week, we split duties. One of us roasts, the other one weighs green coffee, bags the roasted coffee. It's just a matter of compiling all the coffee that we had for that day, getting it in order as far as how it's being roasted and the weights of the particular roast, getting it in an order and weighing it out and doing it, I guess.
Okay, so roasting. Fill us in on the roasting process here. I mean, I know it's.
I think it depends on what you're roasting for. If you're trying to get a certain nuance out of a bean, then you got to do some test roast and you got to do some cupping. And cupping is a whole different thing where you have they're small cups of coffee, and there's a special process to it of, you know, breaking the crust and smelling. So you're smelling at different times, you're tasting in different times, and you're waiting for the coffee to cool to see if you can pick out the notes that's supposed to be in the coffee, or maybe you'll find something new.
Okay.
So a lot of times, like if I cup something, you know, the bean that I bought says that it has black cherry. Well, I may not taste black cherry. I may taste, you know, something else that's in the coffee, and I'll put that on the bag. So because if I'm tasting it and I know I'm selling somebody the coffee, they're going to taste it. So they may taste the same thing. I think you have to have a pretty good nose and palate to be able to pick those out. And I've always been able to smell things. I've been places before with my wife and said, you smell pineapple? And she's like, how do you do that? I'm like, I just smell pineapple.
You could do that too?
A lot of it comes with time and familiarization, because even in the cigar world at Havana House, we kind of run into the same things. Well, customers walk in and they'll say, well, I don't taste this. Am I broken? Is there something wrong with me? Am I, you know, I don't taste cardamom here. I'm like, well, do you know what cardamom tastes like? Well, no. Well, then how would you know it? So a lot of the time it's just familiarizing yourself with those elements and then kind of extrapolating that and figuring out like, oh, you know, I do taste like, you know, you got that pineapple in there.
There's actually coffees like our Sumatran. It actually has a tobacco note. Now, not like out of an ashtray, like from a cigar. So if you can smell a cigar and like if you can taste something and breathe at the same time, you're getting that same sense going on, and that's how you pick up those notes. But it's all in there. I mean, don't muddy it with cream and sugar. Try it black, and you can find it. Joe, I mean,
oh yeah.
Joe drinks black coffee.
You ruin it by the sugar.
I have to say, cream and sugar is my baseline. I'll try everything black, but it's always my baseline. So like, that's when everything pops for me, because that's just what I'm used to.
Yeah, and everybody's palate's different. I mean, you will not get me to eat a mushroom. I'm sorry.
Really?
But people love mushrooms, but I can't go them. It's a texture, taste, moldy thing. I don't like them. But I mean, and some people, I respect that with coffee. They're like, I can't do it black. Well, just try it. So, and I've tried a mushroom for the record. So,
What about mushroom coffee?
no,
Mushroom
Not gonna do
coffee.
I think that's
like
mushroom
Larry
compost.
I just heard an ad for one the other day, and I was thinking, man, I like mushrooms and I like coffee. Maybe the two will mix.
Yeah, it's possible. Anything's possible, I guess.
Mushroom coffee. Oh.
And the other thing too is how you brew the coffee changes and temperatures. A lot of people, you know, they'll buy a coffee maker, like, you know, a regular common name brand. We won't name any brands because we won't want to make anybody mad, but just a regular $30 coffee maker from Walmart. And they get it home and they're brewing coffee and they got to put more coffee in, and they don't understand that brewer only goes to 190 degrees. It won't go any higher. And it's like, to get out of the bean what you're looking for, depending on how it's roasted, you're talking between 195 and 205, maybe a little 205, 206. But a lighter roast, we talked about this the last time we were here, a lighter roast, you want to go a little higher in temperature, maybe 202, 203. And a darker roast, maybe cut back to 195, 196. So you can over extract, you can under extract, but it's trial and error. See where you go with your palate, how you like it. Myself at home, I have an ECM Synchronica espresso machine. It's plumbed. The water is actually filtered. That has 100 to 150 parts per million for that machine. So I'm always getting the best taste of the coffee, which I actually use the espresso machine kind of like a cupping thing. So if I'm going to recommend a coffee that's good for espresso, it's because I've brewed it for espresso. But there's some coffees that are good, some coffees aren't. It just depends on how, because it's a different extraction method. A lot of people think espresso is the grind, or that roast was made for espresso. Well, you can roast for espresso, but any coffee can be an espresso.
Oh, yeah.
So you can take a light roast or a dark roast and make an espresso out of it. Espresso is just the extraction method, the pressure. The pressure is what it draws it from the bean. So another misconception is grinders. People want to go buy a $200 special coffee maker because it makes the best coffee, but you're using a $35 grinder that's garbage.
Chip chopper.
Yeah, I mean the grind is actually more important than the coffee maker.
Really?
Because I mean, you could do a simple pour over like with this here, but if you have a good grinder, that makes all the difference in the world. Then you'll get the flavor out of the coffee.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Consistency of your actual grind, especially when you're dealing with an espresso machine too.
Oh yeah.
Just dialing that in is going by feel. All the time, and just
Yep.
extract, try out, see where we're at, rebalance it out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about this grinder, because I'm probably doing it wrong.
Here we go.
So what,
Tell us about the
so
grinders.
what's a good grinder? Describe it.
A good grinder, if you're going to do espresso, I would recommend a conical burr.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that looks like a little cone. Matter of fact,
He probably has one.
I have one.
He does. Go figure.
So this is an actual hand conical grinder. So if you look down in there, it'd be hard to see with the camera, but it looks like a cone. So that's ceramic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that one is ceramic. The machine I have at home, I have a Sete. It's a Baratza Sete 270 WI, which it weighs the coffee. It actually has an Akai scale that the portafilter sits on. So you push the button, you set it for 19 grams. It gives you 19 grams of coffee. It doses it for you. The cool thing about this particular grinder is it doesn't retain any grinds. So if I want to take the hopper off and put decaf in for my wife, she's not going to get my coffee and her coffee. She's only going to get her coffee. So it grinds straight through. There's no channel for the coffee to go down through. It'll grind and drop directly below, and it's set up just like that. So if we had beans in here and we were grinding, they would fall directly out. There's nothing to catch the beans and hold them. So those are nice. Baratza, Breville. I mean, Breville makes a really nice grinder. I had a Breville for 3 years before I bought my Sete, but I also had a Breville espresso maker. Then I stepped up, wanted to be a big boy, and took the plunge and got the ECM, and it's night and day. I mean, the Brevilles make excellent espresso, but there's a lot of 15-second shots, and you're kind of like, that's not going to cut it. And you got to go back, change your grind. And then you get 20 seconds, change your grind, go back. Now you got 30-second shot, and you got nice crema, and it's perfect. That's where you want to be. But the grind is everything. If you're doing just regular pour over, or if you're doing like a French press, this is really coarse. A blade grinder's fine. I mean, you can still use them. I have a blade grinder, but I haven't used it in quite a long time.
I was going to ask you what your preference was on French press. Whether you go towards the coarse side or more towards the fine side.
Yeah, I mean, you can even take a hammer and put the beans in a bag and beat them, and that'd be about the way I would prefer. Yeah, because it's you want a really coarse bean, and because now we're getting into the geeky part. In a French press or an Eva Solo, it's full immersion, which means the grounds are in the water. It's not passing through, they are actually floating in the water. So you have to make sure you stir, and it's all timing. Okay. So with a French press, you're looking about a 4-minute set time, and then you're gonna plunge, and then you're gonna pour, and you're gonna pour it all out.
Can we do one? Can you show us how to do it?
We can do. I brought stuff to do in the siphon because this is the one everybody loves because it looks like a science experiment.
Okay.
I have people come over to the house and they'll say like, "Hey, can we do the beaker thing?" Like it's called a siphon. But I did. I brought different ways, different ways to brew. So if you wanted to walk through those or talk about them, we can.
This is all old hat to you guys, huh?
Yep.
Pretty familiar.
Yep. This is a regular pour over. This is called a V60. It's made by Hario. This is porcelain, and you can either put a paper filter in it, or this is the cloth filter that I brewed for you the last time you were here.
Okay.
So when you asked, did everybody do a pour over? I'm like, no, I do a cloth filter because there's a reason. Paper absorbs oil. The cloth does not.
Okay.
So when you're brewing through a cloth, you're going to pick out more what's in the coffee because it's going directly through it. It's just keeping the grounds out. The nice thing about the cloth ones is you can wash them and then don't use soap. Just rinse them out with water. Put them in a towel, press them, and just hang them up and let them dry. And you're good to go. You don't have any mold, nothing growing on it. This one here, this is called an AeroPress. Thank you. An AeroPress. How this one works is there is a filter in the bottom here. It's a paper filter. You always want to wash your filters before you brew, and then you would put your coffee grounds in here, and then you pour your water on top and you let it steep, and then you would put your lid on, and then you would set this on top of your cup, and then you would press down. So with this one, it's not like espresso because you don't get the pressure or the bar pressure, but it is pushing everything through physically through the filter. It's a great way to brew. This is great for camping. So if you go camping, it's light, it's easy to take with you. Just like this one here, this is going to be used for tea or coffee. So you can put the grounds in, just leave it set. It's got little arms on it to sit down in your cup. You just pour the coffee down through here, and then once it gets up, you just leave it steep, and then pull it out after 4 minutes. With French press, you would put your grounds in, and then you would pour your water into your desired level. Highly recommend, I'm sure you guys agree, you want to look at ratios. You don't want to say how many teaspoons of coffee, because whether it's ground or it's not ground can make a difference on how much fits in that teaspoon, right? So if you grind coffee and then you weigh it on a scale, grams are preferred, you could do ounces, but there's ratios for everything. I actually just came across a really good website that you can go in and pick what you're brewing, and it'll give you the ratio. And you can put in how many cups, and it'll tell me how much water or how much coffee you need. And it's really nice. So I always use ratios. That way you're not like, well, this is really weak coffee or this is really strong coffee. You want to taste the coffee the way it's supposed to be. So you can brew it per the ratio. Usually 15 to 1 or 16 to 1 is common. A lot of people, if you like a lighter coffee, then you want to go, 16, maybe even an 18 to 1. So you don't want as much. But for a French press, once your coffee sits in here for 4 minutes, then you would plunge this down, and that filter is going to separate the coffee and the grounds, and then you would pour it out. The one mistake people make is they pour out enough for a little cup and they leave it sit, and then they come back and they pour more, and they're like, man, the coffee tastes like crap. Well, no, you've just over extracted your coffee because it's been sitting here for 20 minutes while you're drinking that cup, right? So now you have a 24-minute extraction, and you're wondering why it tastes like mud. This one, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a coffee company called Intelligentsia.
Yep.
They're like the coffee mecca of all the geeks.
They really are.
Yeah, if you go to Chicago, you want to go to Intelligentsia and grab you a cup of coffee. For a commercial coffee company, they're excellent. They're really good. When I was in there getting a Guatemalan, they brewed it in one of these, and I'm looking at it and going like, what is that? And it's called an Eva Solo, and it's simply a glass beaker in a neoprene sleeve to keep it warm. But God bless you, Joe. This filter is a mesh screen filter, and as you turn it, there's a little thing inside here that tilts forward, and then your coffee pours out this spout.
Oh wow!
So this is very close to an Eva, or very close to a French press, but you don't have to go with a coarse ground. So you can go with a regular ground because of the screen is much more fine. And same thing, same extraction time, so it takes 4 minutes. Again, weigh your beans and weigh your coffee. And then this little thing, when it sits down here on the top, it keeps the heat in so nothing's escaping. And then when you pour, that lifts up, and then your coffee's going to come out here. Clean up, I mean, it's like anything. It's like a French press. I mean, it's a pain in the butt to clean up, but hey, you're getting great coffee, right?
Worth it.
Yeah, totally worth it. So the Eva Solo and the French press are very same with the extraction and the taste, but with this you can go with a finer grind of coffee. And then this one here that Joe's eyeballing. This is because I don't have enough coffee gear. I have to buy more coffee gear. This was I actually got this off of what they call before they go live, where you can pledge the money. Kickstarter, like a Kickstarter. So this is actually a portable espresso maker, and it has all of the neat tools inside of it to get you where you want to be. I know people can't see because I have everything in the way. So with this, this is your pod. So you would pack the coffee in this, and then you also use the scooper as the tamp. So when you pack the coffee in, you tamp it down with your thumb, and that packs your grind. And then when you put that back in here, and then you screw this back on, this becomes the portafilter.
That's awesome.
He's buying one.
So here's your portafilter. Now, wait, there's more. The bottom becomes your espresso cup. So this is one shot. So this sits down here, and they even put rubber around it so you don't burn your fingers. So then you would boil your water, and you'd put your water in the water reservoir. Once that's in there, you put this on top, and you tighten that down. And then you turn this over, and you turn this little plunger, and look at that.
Oh,
There's your little plunger.
pressure thing.
So you hold this over your cup, and you give it about 8 pumps, and it's not going to do it because I don't have any water in there. But as you pump that, it builds up pressure, and it pushes the coffee through at 9 bar,
Wow.
which is the coolest thing because you wouldn't think it would work, but as you're pumping on that and you're pushing that, you're watching, you actually get crema, and it makes really good espresso, which is the weirdest thing, because you would think, oh, it's just a gimmick. No, it's an actual espresso maker. I mean, it works very, very well. And they give you a little tool here to clean it out, but just rinse it in a stream or wherever you're at if you're making it on the trail. But yeah, you can have espresso at any time. And if you have enough hot water, you got an Americano. So
That's impressive that it'll get up to 9 bar.
yeah,
That's very cool.
yeah. And then once it's out of water, I mean, you push it and the air goes through, but then you just rinse it out and it's ready to go. But yeah, it's really weird. But that's the reason why that screws on so tight, is because I mean it's solid if you want to play around with it.
They're all liking this. They're all going to be purchasing.
I had heard of these before, but it felt kind of gimmicky. I was like, it's a Kickstarter. I'm not sure how well it's going to work out, but
Yep.
that's awesome.
I had the same thing, and then I took it to work with me, and the guys made a shot of espresso with it, and they were even impressed. I mean, a buddy of mine who, he has Americano every day, and he said, wow, that's amazing for a little handheld unit to be able to make that kind of espresso.
It's very cool.
So to the science experiment, how this one works, this is actually really, really cool. So this is called a siphon. Don't ask me where it originated from. All I can tell you is if you go to Intelligentsia, they have a really good video on how this works properly. I can explain it to you. So let me grab the filter. The filter, I keep these separate. This normally sits in the refrigerator in water, and it is wet right now. But this is what the filter looks like. So how this works, they even give you a cute little stand here. So you can set this up. But with a siphon, the chain drops down through, and then you would lock that on the bottom, straighten up your filter, and that's the filter for the coffee. So how this works is you put the water in the bottom, and then you put this like this until the water starts to boil. Now, the reason why the chain is in there longer and has the beads on it is because it breaks up surface tension. So when things start to boil, you notice the bubbles usually start on the outside. Well, they'll start on that chain. And while this is getting hot, it's heating up the top vessel because you don't want to put anything cold. You don't put coffee in anything cold. Same thing if you're doing a shot of espresso, you always want to heat up the cup before you put it in there. So when this starts to boil, you would then come over and push this down. And what happens is this creates a seal all the way around here. And this pressure pushes the water up the stem through the bottom of this into the coffee, because you pour the coffee up here. So then once the water is all from the bottom into the top, this becomes a full immersion brew, just like we had with the Eva Solo and the French press. So the coffee is in there. You would give it a stir, which I forgot a stir. So if you have a spoon, that would be great.
Plastic good?
Yeah, that's fine. That's what I forgot. So you would, once the coffee's in there, you would give it a stir. You'd leave it sit. You turn the fire down because you just want to keep this warm because it's enough to keep the pressure up. And then after 3 minutes, you would turn the fire off. As this cools, it creates a vacuum, and it pulls the coffee from the top to the bottom and gives you probably one of the cleanest cups of coffee you've ever had.
Really?
Yeah.
Hands down.
Yep.
Really the best of both worlds.
Yeah. It's sorry.
You get full immersion, but you also get that really clean, crisp cup.
Yep. Yeah. The amazing part about it is it's very bright. So even a natural bean, naturals are usually a little more muddy or cloudy when they're brewed. Even a natural put through here is a little more clear. Still syrupy, but it's really good. When we start talking about naturals and washed coffees, it's the process of how the bean is made. So A natural coffee is going to have the cellulose still on the bean while it dries in the sun. So the sugars that's in the cherry from the outside actually get into the bean. And you can tell a difference when you roast them. Usually, like a lot of your blends, like your breakfast blends, I don't know about you guys, but like a breakfast blend is usually a natural and a washed. So you can get the best of both worlds, and it's usually a lighter roast. And that's what everybody loves in the breakfast blends is how chocolatey and syrupy they are. Kind of like cocoa without the milk.
Impressive.
Yeah. So yeah, if you guys want, we can brew a cup of coffee.
Joe loves this part all the way.
This is the geeky stuff.
It's
This is
exactly right.
Now, do
the
you guys-
Breaking Bad of coffee.
Basically.
Do you guys have this at Havana House?
We do.
We do.
Do you? Okay. Okay.
Yep. I'm in Nova in Warren. They also do. They also have 3 or 4 of these.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And you may go see. They'll have like a halogen lamp underneath them. Do you guys use halogen lamps or burners?
We actually use a burner.
Burner. Yeah. Some places use a halogen lamp, which is cool for the effect, because it's this red light glowing underneath it. But basically the same thing. All you're doing is just getting.
That's right.
Oh.
No, you don't have that burner either. Oh, he's going to be buying stuff. Look out, Debbie.
So the water. This is filtered water, 125 parts per million. The water does make a big difference. Do you guys filter water as well? So you guys want to talk a little bit about water while I not to put you on the
So
spot.
how do you do your waters for your coffees?
We actually run everything in line.
Yep.
Oh, do you really? Okay.
So we've got a couple stage filters on any of the water lines heading into the espresso machine or off the taps that we use for.
So it's all set, ready to go, and you just, and it's
half a
always at the
gram.
right temperature.
Don't go through too much more water prep than that.
Really? Okay. Okay.
Okay, don't try this at home, kids.
Uh oh.
It's gonna get serious.
Do you have one of those? he's like Christmas time here.
Did this earlier. Oh, that's why. There we go. It moved. There's a little safety in there to keep you from blowing yourself up,
Good.
which is
That's
probably
always nice.
It's probably a good idea, right? And then this. So
This
this
does
is
look
when
like a science experiment. Yeah.
this is when the music plays in the background, the elevator
Right?
music.
Did we speed up the
Beautiful
yeah.
footage here.
Yeah, it's the beautiful art of recording, right?
Right? Exactly.
But you can actually see where the water is already starting to get some bubbles and.
Yeah, yeah. That with that butane torch, I mean, they actually cook pretty quick. It doesn't take long. So
No, it
what we're
doesn't.
doing here on the ratio is 16 to 1. So we have 950 grams of water, and we're going to use. Normally I don't do this, but for this show to save time, I always grind before you. But this was just ground for the record. Right before I left here to come here, this is 57 grams of coffee for this here. So what we do is we wait for this to boil, then we'll push this down. The water will come up, and then we'll throw the coffee in and give it a stir. Then we'll wait a minute, give it another stir, and then when we shut the heat off, it's going to create a vacuum and pull it back down.
Oh, this is going to be interesting.
That's cool.
And this all happens
One of the
within
coolest.
4 minutes.
4 or 5. I mean, it's you want to try to keep it to 4 because there's a time of extraction that happens. It's a physical thing. You can't change it unless you're on the International Space Station, I think. But it has to be. The bean's going to release so much at a time, and it also depends on the grind. So the finer the grind, the quicker the extraction because there's more surface area that you're touching with water. So that's why the coarser ground on these are 4 minutes and gives you a great cup of coffee.
So you're saying thinner grind is a better cup of coffee?
Depending on how you're brewing.
Yep.
Yeah, so like coarse ground is here. This is a medium coarse ground. This is a drip, which is probably like, if you would look at this would be a 1, this would be a 2, this would be a 3, and the 3 being the finer the grind. An espresso would probably be like an 8.
Yeah.
It's almost like a powder.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's real fine.
Does that do fine as well?
This doesn't grind, so you have to grind it already. But you can crank this sucker down and actually get espresso grind out of here.
Wow.
It's because it's the same as a conical burr. I mean, it's
Okay.
it's the same thing. If you want to look in the bottom, it's the same type of conical burr. It's just made out of ceramic.
Oh yeah.
And the ceramics do wear out faster than the steel. I mean, but I don't use that often. Every once in a while, like once you have espresso dialed in, you don't touch that grinder.
Really?
No, you don't turn it back and say, well, I'm going to make a pour over today, so I'm going to take that all the way out to nothing, open and grind, and then I'm going to put it back. It just doesn't happen because your next shot of espresso is not going to be good. But
Dedicated tweaks maybe at the start of the
Yeah.
day, depending on what kind of humidity and conditions you have.
yeah,
So humidity, just here we go.
She caught that.
Caught that.
The other thing too is the age of the bean. So if you take a freshly roasted bean and you put it in your grinder, you may be at an 8, and then a couple of days later, you may be at a 9 or higher. So
So how do you know? You don't.
by the time the shot.
Yep.
So when you're pouring a shot, you should try to use a timer or have something to give you let you know how long that extraction has taken place. Usually past a 30-second shot, you're starting to get in the bitters. You're starting, and that's where you get that on the back end, and it's not good. You could take a beautiful Brazilian that has lots of cocoa flavors in it and do a Rosetto shot, like a 20-second shot, and taste all the chocolate in it. And then you can go 35 seconds, and it's like, ooh, it's like you put bitters in it.
Yep.
It's bad. So, but some beans are better with a longer extraction. It's all trial and error. I mean, it's what your palate is. So how you like it.
So how do you know which beans to start picking and selling and roasting and? I mean, there's a fine art to that too. Then.
Yeah, I think you need to look at your clientele. You need to say, okay, what is my audience and who am I looking to sell to? Anybody can go to the companies that over roast their beans. We know who those are because there's a little bit of coffee with a lot of milk and a lot of sugar. And they're like, man, I love this. Well, all their beans are the same. Once you get past in a roast, once you get past second crack, then that's when everything starts getting muddy. You don't taste the nuances of the bean as you would in a medium or a light roast. So when you get into over roasting a bean to where they're black and oily, an Indonesian bean can taste like a Brazilian bean, and an Ethiopian bean can taste like a Peruvian bean. It's just how it's roasted. Just watching the bubbles.
Yeah,
We're getting there.
that is interesting.
Yep.
It does look like a science project. I'm
Yep.
not gonna lie.
I could totally do this on the Coleman camping stove.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
This is actually a Chef Master butane stove. I mean, it's just a can of butane that's in here, but they work nicely.
There goes the bubbles.
Yep.
It's
So we're
starting.
getting there. So what we're going to do, I'm going to move this mic because I don't want to have an accident. The vessel's warm. I mean, you could touch it, but we're going to push this down. And now this is going to start building pressure. And once that pressure builds, you'll see the water will come up the center tube. Here it comes.
Yeah, here it comes.
You want to be my timer guy? So once I pour this in and give it a stir, we're going to wait a minute, and then we're going to give it a stir. And what you're looking for is a delineation between the water and the coffee.
Oh. I feel like we're in a lab.
Yep. Now that is way too hot. So we'll wait. We'll let that cool down. We'll let the bubbles stop. Because you can actually screw up a siphon.
Mm-hmm.
And all the water is pretty much gone from the bottom.
Yep. So that pressure is keeping that up there. Now, I don't have a real low simmer on this, so I may have to play with this a little bit. Why? Because I don't want to lose it. So, okay, once our bubbles are gone, we're going to pour in our coffee. And then you can go ahead and start the timer.
Yep.
Okay.
So you just dumped them right in there.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
That's called full immersion. Now we'll let that sit for a minute, and then we're going to give it another stir. Now, when you buy coffee and you bring it home, whether it's ground or it's not, when the coffee hits water, and if you don't see a bloom, throw it out and go get something else because
Really?
you're drinking old coffee.
Yep.
Yep, starting to come back down. So I'm going to build up a little more pressure in here.
And there it goes.
Yep. Yeah, we're going to have to feather it and play with it.
And you guys do this at the store as well.
We do.
So this is a science, really. You really got to get good at.
It is a process. There's
Yeah.
nothing worse than having a broken seal
Yeah.
on one where you just see it.
Yeah.
You're like, what's going on? Like, nothing's happening. That's the issue right now.
Oh.
So we're at the
See,
1
you
minute
made
mark.
fun of me for a 4-minute cup of coffee. Think
I-
about putting this together, right?
Could you imagine getting dressed for work and putting this together?
This is a Saturday
weekend.
morning. I've been dying for this cup of coffee, and I want to taste everything in it. That type of deal.
Okay.
Do you have any cups?
Or if you want to go out to a restaurant and go get a nice cup of coffee, you guys put a hurting on this.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it'd be really cool to do like a table service.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody came out, but that would be it's an expensive cup of coffee.
Yeah. It's worth it though.
Well,
It would be worth it if you could get people to come in and sit around
There
like
we
we
go.
are and
Absolutely.
drink coffee and buy hors d'oeuvres. And...
just sell it as Kopi Luwak.
Yeah.
Actually, have you had Kopi Luwak? I've had
not.
it. It's like a dirty Sumatran coffee.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah,
No?
yeah. Kopi Luwak is the tree cat excrement bean. Yeah, where they actually take the beans out of the feces of the tree cat and they wash them, process them, and then you roast the beans. And it's been, what are we on?
2 minutes, 14 seconds.
All right, so we'll give it a stir.
So it's a time science of 4 minutes.
Yep. Okay, now that part's done. So there's nothing else we need to do except for keep that water up in the top.
I'm amazed at how much you know about each little percolator over
Well,
there. Goodness gracious.
You spend enough time with something, you learn it quickly, right?
Yeah, you do. Yes, you do.
We had 3 minutes.
2:48.
All right, so we'll let this go, and this will start coming down. So usually around 3 minutes, you want to shut off your heat. That way, you start pulling that coffee back through.
Now, having the restaurant end of it, the retail, do you guys see more people coming in now for coffee rather than they used to for drinks and alcohol?
We have a lot of people coming in for pounds now. Now that they kind of associate us with Youngstown Coffee and Havana House, vice versa, it's really kind of started to build up quite a bit.
Okay.
Or even just from the show that we did before, we had people come in and say like, "Hey, we saw you at Justine's show."
Do they really?
Yeah, it was
Aw,
awesome.
bless their hearts. That's awesome.
So I mean that's been fantastic recently, but you know, kind of going from just Havana House to branching out and actually having a little more of an identity towards the coffee, I think has helped out completely. It's just kind of like a little mental reset.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, because before I was like, well, I don't want to go to a cigar store and get good coffee. Why am I going to do that?
They don't make the separation there then.
Yeah, now there's a
Now
little
there's-
bit of delineation there, so people are going, you guys are Youngstown Coffee? Yeah, okay, cool.
So now your coffee's pulling back through.
Yep, we're at 4 minutes.
As many times as I've done this, I never get tired watching it. I
Nope.
never get tired of seeing this.
Oh, you draw a crowd when you make one. Like,
Yeah.
in front of a bunch of people. What are you doing over there?
It is interesting. All the different types of gadgets. Do you own any of those over there?
I French press,
Okay, I have one of those, believe it or not.
pour over. That's it. Just French press and pour. My favorite is pour over.
So I can probably see you getting an espresso for camping.
That for sure. I
I-
didn't know the thing was existed. For sure.
Yeah, it's called a mini presso.
And you can find those really anywhere? Have you seen them? Or just the
Online.
one? Okay.
I'm sure they're on Amazon by now. I've had this for about a year and a half.
These guys are all going to be looking for them.
Yeah, I'm probably going to end up with one now.
Thinking about it.
Designed by Wackico.
Wackico.
Wackico. Sometimes you'll see, like, depending on the temperature or what's here, sometimes they'll take like a cold cloth and put on here, because the faster you cool this bottom vessel, the more vacuum it pulls. But you know it's done when you start seeing bubbles down here because it's sucking air. Yep. And the cool part is a lot of people don't understand that coffee absorbs so much water. So the water that you put into, it doesn't matter what extraction method you're using, the coffee is going to absorb some. So we put 950 grams of water in here, which on this says 7 cups, but what it'll yield is about 6 cups. Good, we're good. Wanted to make sure. So now we're down with the grounds that are, there we go. We can start seeing suck in the air, and it's going to bubble here in a
Oh
second.
my gosh.
And then when that bubbles, like that, there we go.
Air has returned.
Sounds like the old percolator from
It
back when you were
does.
growing up as a kid, right?
Yeah,
So
cool.
you just want to break the seal. You hear that? And then that handy little stand that they give you.
Put that back on.
Yeah. I'm just going to take this and set it here.
What company made that siphon?
This is actually, I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's actually a company. I got it off of Amazon. You can get these for around, I think, in between 40 and $50, depending.
Here
Where you get-
the Bodum Peebo.
yeah, the boat.
I noticed it has
makes them.
the cloth. The Bodum, I mean, has the plastic filter. Have you seen it?
No, I have not seen that. I use the cloth ones. You could buy them in like 3-packs. They're really cheap. But you clean them, and then as long as you store them in the fridge in water, they'll last for. I mean, that one there is probably a year old, and,
Really?
and it looks brand new. Yeah, yeah. So that's the nice thing is they last. So this is an Ethiopian. This is the Ethiopian Yirgacheffe.
One of my favorites.
That's actually one of my favorites to run through a vacuum.
Well, I'm glad I picked that because I was going through saying, which bean am I going to take now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know how you could drink it that hot.
It is, yes. Looks like it's scalding.
Yeah. So if you get the ratio correct, the rest of it, I'm going to take that. The sugar's getting low. Perfect.
It's like you planned it.
Yeah, it's like you planned it.
But yeah, the
It smells amazing.
The Ethiopian Yirgacheffe that we have is these are sample packs that I do. So usually when you're done roasting and you've bagged everything, you always have some left over.
Yeah.
And what I'll do is I'll put them in small bags like this. I do have to poke a thin hole in the back and put a sticker over it because the bags will pop. There's no expansion in here. This is an older sample. I would not give this to anybody because this is from June. But I brought it because it's the Yirgacheffe. It's the same bean that we have here. So what we're tasting in this, and of course I didn't put the note on that one. It's tea-like. There should be a peach and a berry note to it. So I don't know if you can taste that. Now, if you look at the top of the cup, you can see the oils floating on top, and that's what you get with a cloth filter. Now, paper filters, just like if you take a paper towel and put it on the garage floor and pour oil on it, or put it on oil, it's going to absorb it. The cloth filter will not. So that's, your oils will come through on that. We do these for pour-overs too. So like if you want to go camping, you can take a pack of these and just open a pack, and you can get either ground or whole bean if you want to take a grinder and grind it yourself. But they're already there with instructions on how much water and how much coffee's in the bag. Because I actually gave these to a guy one time, and he went home and he says, "Yeah, I brewed that pot of coffee and it was so weak." I'm like, "What coffee are you talking about?" And he goes, "Well, you give me that pouch of coffee." I'm like, "Dude, that's a pour over. That's for one cup, not 12. So yeah, I gave him more beans, so he tried that. But yeah, so you always have to ask people, do you do pour overs or single cups? Keurig, same thing. You can grind any bean and get those little pods and put your own coffee in it and make your own Keurig. So if your coffee shop you're looking at does not offer Keurig cups, because there's an expenditure to that, by all means get one of those little pods that you can put your own coffee in and brew, and it's just the same thing. I have several people. I actually, if somebody tells me that's what it's for, I grind it a little finer.
Yeah.
Because if you do a regular, then it's going to be a weak cup of coffee. But if you grind it in between, I would say in between an espresso and a drip, then because the extraction time on a Keurig is what, 30 seconds?
Something like that.
I mean, it's almost physically impossible unless you do it in an espresso grind to get the proper extraction out of
All right,
coffee.
we got another minute, so why don't you guys tell us where people can find you? Tell us a little bit about where you're located.
Well, you can find us at either our Boardman Havana House location or our Niles Havana House location. But as far as everything goes, we're situated actually in the Boardman stores where we do all of our roasting.
Okay.
So
Very good. And Joe?
I am in Cortland. Single roaster, I do small batches. I don't do 195 pounds yet, but I have done 115 a day.
Wow.
So that's a lot of coffee for a single guy. You can find us online at thirddaycoffee.com. And if you go there for the month of September, I'm going to honor it. There's a coupon code for Youngstown Studio, all one word.
Nice.
Give you guys a little plug there. So Youngstown Studio, you can get 15% off your entire purchase. We offer free shipping off of $49 or more. So, come by, check us out, and order a bag of coffee.
Very
All right,
nice.
guys. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you
down.
so
Thanks for having
much.
us.
All right.
Appreciate it.